Welcome to Chronic Combat Conversations, a live look at our best bets, picks, and predictions for UFC Fight Night Reyes versus Prochazka, with your hosts, TB Scouting MMA and
The MMA Guru, back after a landmark pay-per-view event, which was honestly one of the most entertaining cards, top to bottom, that I've seen in an extremely long time. I mean, it lived up to the standards that I thought that Izzy card was going to be. It was so special because I really think because of the crowd. But I mean, my God, what an insane event with Rose taking the title. But we're back this week with a free card on ESPN2, UFC on ESPN 23, UFC Vegas 25, back at the Apex. No crowd, unfortunately, this week. But we do have an incredible main event, title contender eliminator, no?
I would say so. I mean, this one's got me on the edge of my seat.
And we got the return of Cub Swanson taking on the Georgian kickboxer Giga Jikadze. I can't wait for that one. Otherwise, I think we're going to have pretty much a bit of an abbreviated card between the NFL draft this week and just some other things going on. I honestly, I gotta be honest with you and the fans. I've been even still, I've been still watching the highlights. I've just been a little hungover from UFC 261.
I mean, how could you not? What did we have? 6 finishes in a row to complete the card? Is that right?
But yeah, I mean, shout out Chris Weidman's leg. I mean, that's crazy. Shout out Jimmy Crute's knee. That was crazy. We love the overs in that. We got crushed. That sucked.
Yeah, but hey, I guess like they say, we live to bet another day, and I think we're gonna try to take a little bit more of a less, throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, and more try to throw some darts here and try to find a couple more precise plays rather than flooding the bet sheet and getting a little out of control. I think it'd be a good process to kind of focus in on what our better plays would be. And like we said, the NFL draft, everything going on this week, makes a little more sense to just focus on a couple of the prelims we were interested in and then get down to the main card. So why don't we go ahead and get started? There are a bunch of fights here to kick off the card that are very exciting. We would normally spend some time on, but just for the sake of mentioning them, Luke Sanders versus Felipe Colares. We're not going to spend time on that one. Don't really have a bet on it. Andreas Michailidis versus KB Bueller. Same type of idea. Not too much UFC tape on either. Loma Lupunmi versus Sam Hughes. Another one where the line's a little crazy. Don't really have.
And Kai Kamaka versus TJ Brown. Generally one that we maybe would try to sink our teeth into, but with a tough week and just trying to maybe learn a lesson, a fight that we're probably going to stay away from. And I think when we break down the next fight, when we talk about JSP and maybe his win over Kai Kamaka, we can kind of talk about why, like, the volatility of that fight is makes it why we don't want to, right? Kai Kamaka was a huge favorite going into that fight, and he shows that he's not really a very well-established fighter yet, and doesn't do very well against JSP.
Yeah, so it makes sense to stay away and learn a little bit more about TJ Brown making a debut at a new gym. So let's get down to the first fight of the card that we want to get into here. We have Gabriel Benitez, Mowgli, facing Jonathan Pierce, JSP.
Which is a terrible nickname, by the way, but I guess he's got to do it.
I guess so, right?
Coming from the _ MMA guru, I probably shouldn't be talking about anybody's nicknames.
To get into this exciting fight that honestly, it has the potential to be a fight of the night if it wasn't on a Cub Swanson, fight night.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm really excited to see. We always hear about Gabriel Benitez and how hard he can throw his kicks from Javier Mendez. Coming in against this guy, JSP, came in through the Contender Series. He was working out of the MMA lab and switched over to Fight Ready recently. He's 10-4 in his career. Benitez 22-8. JSP is going to come in with a bit of a size advantage. He does have 4 inches of height, but he has the same reach. So JSP a little younger. But, really coming into this fight, I see that Benitez has so many submission finishes. so many knockouts, and JSP really limited to his knockouts. And I'm curious about his gas tank.
You raise a bunch of good points. The one thing that stands out to me with Mowgli is, at least recently, the incredible win against Justin James with the knee to the body. We know that James is soft to the body, and he takes advantage of that. I love that. His losses, the round one knockout loss to Sadiq Yusuf. I mean, we know Yusuf is a beast. And Omar Morales, we've seen him look a lot better, right? I mean, we know that Omar Morales is legit at 11-1. So especially since he's moved up in weight. So I think that Benitez is the rightful favorite here. Yeah, I think you had a prop that maybe you like that you're probably going to talk me into.
Yeah, so this is how this normally goes. This one will probably be small if I do play it. I want to just make sure, JSP coming in at a fight ready now. He's probably going to come in the shape of his life. And it'll be interesting to see, Benitez moving down in weight for this fight. It's not that he hasn't fought at 145 before. It's just that he hadn't done it for the last two fights. Now, those were pandemic times, so maybe a little short notice type of deal. But he is going to have to make the cut back down for the first time in a little bit. So I'm curious to make sure that he looks good on the scale. But plus 170 for a knockout, JSP doesn't move his head and he keeps his hands low. And, he really relies on being able to put the pressure and the pace on and some grappling. And that doesn't, I could see Benitez giving him a little trouble trying to scoop the neck or something like that and getting back to his feet and really being able to work the body and then finish off to the head. I mean, he had Sadiq Yusuf on skates in the first round before getting knocked out himself. I could see Benitez getting a knockout here. And, Pierce, I think he could be a good prospect going forward. I would just really like to see more head movement before I could trust him.
Yeah. I guess as I'm looking here on PointsBet, shout out PointsBet, because the other apps don't seem to have their shit together this week.
DraftKings and FanDuel are slacking.
I guess I see, based on your thought process, Benitez in the under 2.5 plus 160.
Yeah, it's a very similar idea, but you get protection on the submission, so that's not the worst idea.
That was the thought for me.
Especially with he has 8 knockouts, 11 subs, so it's not like he's not game for a submission. He really only he has 2 submissions and 1 knockout in the UFC, so maybe you're onto something here. I'm sorry, Benitez does have 2 knockouts in the UFC and 2 submissions and 2 decisions. I apologize.
JSP has 2 submission losses professionally. So one by KO, 1 by decision. So, I think that if you really do like Benitez here, the under 2.5 is with that at plus money. I think is what you got to play.
Yeah, that's a really solid idea. Sounds like we're both on Benitez.
You talked me into it,
like I tend to do. On to our next fight here. This one is very, very interesting for me. We have Randa Marcos with one of the most interesting records in women's MMA coming in.
She's fought everybody.
Everybody coming in against Luana Pinheiro off of Dana White's Contender Series. This one could get interesting here. Marcos 10-1, Pinheiro 8-1. So there's a big experience discrepancy. Marcos is 2 inches taller, has 1 inch more of reach.
There's a huge level of competition disparity, which is the biggest thing that jumps out on the page to me personally.
Yeah, definitely. So you look at Marcos's record let's dig right in. 5 submission wins, 7 decision wins, 3 submission losses, 8 decision losses. So a knockout for Pinheiro, who has 2 knockouts, 5 submissions, and 1 decision on her record. Yeah, that's most likely not coming by knockout. I just don't see that happening personally.
No, I agree. Yeah, when you look at, she needs a knockout. When you look at the records of the girls that she's fighting, 3-1, 6-5, 0-2. These are 8-6 gets her, is her Contender Series fight.
Yeah.
She hasn't fought anybody. So realistically, this is a make or break spot for Randa Marcos. If you lose to Luana here, you're cut. And I really do think it's as simple. Maybe they keep her around just because she's a gamer, and it doesn't. But it's very rare that you lose 4 fights in a row, 5, and you get a chance for a 5th. Like, I just don't see it. So, I mean, if Randa wants to continue to be the gatekeeper that they expect her to be, I think she needs a win here.
I agree with that. I mean, looking at the credentials, it gets interesting because you see Pinheiro was a judo black belt, BJJ purple belt, national wrestling silver medalist. So it's not like she can't, work it on the ground. She does have the 5 submissions, but I just think that's a bad place to go with Marcos, who, I mean, it was so stupid to jump out on top of Mackenzie Dern, but this isn't Mackenzie Dern, right?
Right. So, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. I mean, she did beat Ashley Yoder, who a lot of people, for some reason, were saying that she was going to beat Angela Hill or give Angela Hill trouble a few weeks ago. I was like, I don't know what they saw. You lose a decision to Amanda Hebos. No problem there. We know what she's destined for if she can get her striking together. Mackenzie Dern, again, a possible title challenger at this point, really put it together against Nina Nunes last time out. I mean, is really looking incredible. And Kanakamura, who seems to be right, like the real deal, an exciting prospect in a division where prospects are kind of hard to come by.
Yeah, so the point I'll make about that fight in particular, I was heavy on Murata when she got signed. And
Because of the matchup
yes,
specifically, right?
but also it was the wrestling and the
Right,
wrestling heavy approach and the fact that she was so strong. Now, also, she got signed just straight off of the regional scene as like a top prospect.
right.
You look
Which is
at
rare.
Pinheiro, she's coming off a contender series.
And
Those are
Brave
the
CF, which is not as high level as where she
yeah,
came from.
it makes me want to fade.
Yeah,
I want to go with
I
the
agree.
underdog. So we're looking at the line minus 180 Pinheiro and plus 142 for Marcos. That could be my big underdog play of the
It's
card.
just it's what has Luana done to earn up nearly a minus 200 favorite in her UFC debut?
Yeah, all
Nothing.
all early finishes. So I'm
Nothing.
curious to see her in deep waters. I'm not willing to trust. Okay, so my thought is that if Marcos can wear her down in the grappling and not get stopped in round one, plus 750 for submission could be an interesting. Like if you want to take a little sprinkle on a fight like this and not pick a side, but I think I'm just gonna take a side and
Yeah,
play
why
that.
not just I to me you get Random Marcos at plus 140. You get the experience advantage. You know that she's hungry. You know that she needs a win. She last fought in November, so she's had plenty of time off. I, Randa rolls here, barring this girl act like knocking her block off. But has she ever even been knocked out?
No,
This
no, that's what I'm saying is that
so
none of
no
Marcos's fights have
way,
ever ended by
dude, no
knockout.
way. Randa's the pick, and it has to be. It's I don't even think it's dog chasing. I think it might be negligence to have Randa as a dog.
That's the play I'm making. As we make our way to the main card here, this is a fight that I'm going to want to skip. Like we were talking about earlier, that there would be a few.
I'm taking a smoke break during this fight. Like, feel free to see my verdict picks out of whack for this fight because I don't know what they're. I mean, I know what they're doing, but whatever. Not a
Yeah,
fight that I mean, it's whatever, man. I mean, but I don't want to be. Pollyanna's cool, right? I mean,
yeah, I'm
and
just not sure I can trust the line, and I don't know that I want to make a play on that.
no, I mean she beat Lauren Mueller, who's probably shouldn't even be in the UFC. Losses to Jillian Robertson and Cynthia Calvillo. Yeah, nothing that I really need to talk about.
Yeah,
So
yeah, nice and easy. But let's get on to one that's going to be
that
a
knee,
banger.
that knee bar loss to Lipsky though. How do we not talk about that? That's just funny. I think, but again, I mean, I think that literally highlights why we're not talking about it. Like knee bar loss to Lipsky.
That's it.
Moving right along.
Yeah, yeah. Now this one. Now let's talk about a banger. Wow,
Rob the meathead.
the meathead, Merab Dvalishvili, coming in versus Cody. I will fight anybody if Merab has to pull out Stamen. Uh, he was, this matchup, this is the third time it's been booked. I'm hoping that we can see it through. I'm thinking the MMA gods are just going to fuck with us one more time. But if we can get this matchup, this is going to be a tough test of Merab's grappling overall and his fortitude. So I think Stamen's going to come in with a little bit of good cardio. Merab, same size, but he's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage. So, on the feet with his crazy spinning attacks and stuff, yeah, he might have a little something there. Now, all right, so let's look over at their records, right? Because in the UFC, these guys don't have finishes, right? So Marab,
No.
5-2, 5 decisions, one submission loss, which was a technical submission after the bell in round 3 to Ricky Simone, and then a decision loss. So really, all of his fights have went to decision in the UFC. Then you have Stamen.
What I think is uniquely interesting about these guys, before we continue to
Yeah,
talk about all their decisions,
yeah,
what I think is most uniquely interesting about these guys is that a lot of times in the UFC, if you don't see finishes early on in regional, you don't get to the UFC. They look for those early finishes. You want guys with finishes on the regional scene. Interestingly enough, both of these guys are not shown to be finishers on the regional scene. You see it in their records. Yes, of course, they have some finishes littered throughout there, but not like 4 or 5 in a row, like a lot of people rattle off when you're fighting in the regionals. This fight going the distance is like pretty much a guarantee. I mean, it's what everybody expects. So do you fade that, right? Because we've seen that.
right. So Marab with the spinning back fist KO, he did it right before he got into the UFC. That was his call up, and then he's shown the propensity to throw it. Stamen, he's shown the propensity to get taken down. This is something that we were actually talking about a little earlier. Marab, we could talk all day about him breaking the records for takedowns, all that. But listen, Cody Stamen, for his 80%, takedown defense in his last fight, gets taken down 2 out of 3 by Rivera, and in his win over Kelleher, he gets taken down once there. It doesn't look great. And Marab, he's coming in with the pace, he's coming in with the pressure. And say this fight does end up on the feet, I do think Stamen has the better technique. But Marab is just he's the machine. It's in his name.
I just see we watched Jimmy Rivera take down Stamen. I see a lot of rinse and repeat from Marab, which is what we've seen from Marab. So that's kind of what we can expect from him. I expect him to spam the takedown, sit in top control, and I kind of expect it to go the distance. I mean, I guess if you want to be crazy and fade that narrative, you have to play Marab by finish, which is plus 400. So, I mean, that's pretty incredible. Um,
Something that was interesting to me when you're seeing Marab on his Instagram and stuff diving headfirst into frozen lakes and cutting open his head, having sparring incidents and getting a cut.
he's an idiot.
Is this guy like I've seen him get cut in fights also, like where he's winning handily. So like he's facing I think it was Brad Katona and he has a cut on his face. He loses to Frankie Syons even though he lands 11 takedowns by split decision. He loses to Ricky Simone on this technical submission. Basically, he knocked himself out going for a takedown, which the ref
Right.
didn't see. And then he sits in this guillotine and he's pumping his legs and he goes to the final bell and the ref's like, "Oh no, wait, no, that dude
Yeah,
was
he's
out."
actually asleep.
Yeah,
That
so
fight was insane.
so it's not like he's not beatable. It just came in the first two
They
fights
need
of
to
his
run that
career.
fight back.
It's his last 5 fights, very interesting. And yeah, Ricky Simone, I would love to see that fight again because Marab really did win it all the way up until the very end when yeah
He
and
knocks himself
yeah,
unconscious.
but Marab does land a knockdown in that fight, interestingly enough.
In any event,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think at the end of the day, the smart move, and this is the craziest thing, the smart move is to find another play and play. I'm sorry. The smart move is to find another play and parlay Marab to it. That I mean, that may be crazy, but like I think that's like the smartest thing to do.
Yeah, I just think if this fight goes to a decision and Marab's able to get any type of pace on his, like style and explosive grappling and his ability to like keep diving in is going to look really good to the judges. So
I thought you liked. I thought you liked finish or
no, listen, I'm not sold on it. I'm just saying you could fade the narrative. But yeah, I mean, like honestly, my biggest play of the night is going to be Marab parlayed with another piece coming up here.
oh, so all right, so kind of all right, that makes sense. So that's what I'm saying. If you can find another piece, I'm not sure if I've found mine. It sounds like
Oh yeah,
TB
no,
has
I
found
am
his.
sold on mine. I'm so ready.
Oh, he sold on his.
Yeah,
Sheesh.
yeah,
But yeah,
I'm ready to
I
bring the
like
heat.
Marab, and I think he's parlayable. And if I can get good odds on something else I like, and I actually something I love, not like. If I can get good odds on something else I love, I'm in. So I guess to shout out MMA Lock of the Night, I personally have been really trying to follow his betting philosophy. I've been doing a terrible job, but I think this week may be more of an implementation of that. And I think it's safe to say that our dog of the night would probably be Random Arcos.
Yeah, that definitely
And
makes sense. It's about limiting your exposure.
yeah, and that's what his whole thing is. And he's on like 10 straight weeks. So shout out him. I mean, he's killing it right now.
He is the man, and you
Totally nice guy
yeah,
too.
one of the best dudes to deal with. It's such a blessing dealing with a lot of these guys in the community because they're always so helpful. And yeah, I mean, listen. So if you really want to talk, ideas of what to do next, then to me, that means we got to get on to the next fight to close
Let's
out the
do it.
parlay. So here we go. One of my favorite guys in the UFC right now to watch, Sean Strickland
A
versus Chris.
crazy man. He's crazy. He's insane. Sean
Yes,
Strickland's insane.
he's definitely one of the more interesting people to to follow. He really doesn't care, and I kind of like that. He's always trying to spar. He's always trying to get in there and get refs. Like he's just a psycho in that
if
regard.
if you get a chance, don't turn off the podcast. But if you get a chance, go see Strickland just the other day talking about the fact that Brendan Allen wanted a rematch with him,
Oh
and
God,
just his response. He's a crazy man.
he's unique and he's to the point. Like he knows what he wants to say, and it's really funny. Uh,
Yeah, he does not mince words.
But more importantly, let's get down to why we think he's actually going to win or lose. So for me, I think you can kind of already tell where I'm leaning here, getting all excited. But let's break it down. So
Let's
Strickland,
breaking it down. Keep breaking it down.
Strickland was at 170, and he fought some hitters there, and recently made the move up to 185 after a very serious motorcycle accident. I'm sure it's been talked about a ton. We'll glaze over it at this point. So he's been back a couple fights now, now at 185. When he was down at 170, his three losses in his career came to some of the biggest names out there. You got Santiago Ponzinibbio by decision in 2015. You have Kamaru Usman by
I've never
decision.
heard of him. Who's that guy?
Who is that guy? 2017 unanimous decision, and Eliseu Zaleski dos Santos by, oh my god, what a devastating spinning heel kick! Or oh man, he just dropped him off a counter on a spinning kick. Okay, anyways, yeah. So down at 170, had a couple trials and tribulations against some of the bigger names, but he's also got 9 wins in the UFC here. Sean Strickland has put in the work. Maybe a little forgotten since he was on that injury break, but now he's back and showing, hey, I can bust off a top prospect in round 2 in Allen. I could, piece up Marshman in my return and, maybe play with fire a little bit. But like, I mean, come on, how much fire is really in those hands? But yeah, then we got Jocko. And he's also extremely solid when you look at the paper, just 9-4 in the UFC. So only one more loss, but the same amount of wins as Strickland. But then you look at some of the names on here, and his losses just aren't as impressive to me. I mean, Brad Tavares round 3 knockout, Uriah
Yeah,
Hall round 2 knockout. It's not as much.
I think like you're saying, it's there. It's not like his losses aren't impressive. Brad Tavares, Uriah Hall, and David Branch were all. I mean, they're all quintessential middleweights over the last 10 years. But with Strickland's losses against the champion Usman and Ponzinibbio in his prime, I mean, it's pretty hard to debate whose losses are more impressive. Um, you look at who he's now beaten on his 3-fight winning streak. Um, Alan Amedovsky, I don't know where that guy is. Mark Andre Barriute, who just came back and had a nice win, but I don't know that he's anything so special. And Eric Anders, who's shown suspect IQ in the octagon, has shown suspect cardio, looked his best against Darren Stewart last time out. I mean, they may be a little overpriced, but I think it's fair. Strickland should smash him.
Yeah.
Where does Jocko have a chance to
So to
tire him
me,
out, grapple, put him on the ground?
I could see this minus up like to my minus 400, man, because the way you watch each of them fight is Jocko is very willing to move on the back foot and wait for guys to come in on him, and he tries to piece together some combos, but at the same time, I mean, he's only landing 3 strikes per minute, and not really doing enough. He likes his side to side movement and circling away from bigger hitters. And I think Strickland comes in as, they're the same size here, but Strickland comes in with a little bit better footwork offensively. He's going to be walking him down the whole time. He lands 5 strikes per minute. I just don't see how Jocko could win a decision here, given that you look at their grappling numbers and yeah, they're about the damn same. The takedown accuracy for Strickland is actually 60%, whereas Jocko's only 35, but that's more because of the volume. But they land about the same amount, and Strickland's got 81% takedown defense, where Jocko's 87%. I don't think this fight goes to the ground. I think Strickland keeps it standing where he wants it, and if it does go to the ground, I think he can get out of it. I just don't see a way that Jocko comes away with the victory here unless he's able to land a nice counter and put Strickland down. I just don't see the spinning heel kick capoeira style really, in his back
Yeah,
pocket
no,
here.
that's clearly not a threat here. And you've kind of already started getting me titillated on what obviously your play is and where my play should be. So I'm not going to steal your thunder. Why don't you just tell us
That's
your
it.
play?
Merab Dvalishvili minus 250, Sean Strickland minus 255. The line is slightly better on FanDuel since I'm doing both in a parlay here for their money lines. It's minus 105. That's as solid as it gets. That's probably a five.
Now I'm gonna. Let me do you one more. Let me do you one crazier. Let me do you one crazier. All right. Marab money line parlayed with Sean Strickland double chance KO or decision. So you're getting Sean Strickland instead of at whatever he is minus 250, minus 270. You're getting him at like minus 190. He's not going to get a submission. That's generally not what he's looking for. I think he'd be more apt to go for the ground and pound. I'm sure you probably know it offhand like a weirdo. Do you know what Jocko's BJJ
Yeah,
level
they're
is?
they're both brown belts, but I could
So,
see
so
Strickland has 4 submission wins in his career, and Jocko does have a submission loss. So I'm not rushing to
ooh,
get rid of
listen, that submission
chance.
loss was
I think it
his
was to
second UFC
Cheatham
fight.
blood. Cheatham blood. I mean, come
Yeah,
on, man. Like that's to me, if he gets touched up a little bit and ends up on the ground, yeah, you're telling me Strickland won't maybe try to go for the neck if he's able. Like
I think he
I don't want
prefers
to play
ground and
around.
pound.
Yeah,
I, I
and he might. But to me, I'm sticking with the money lines. I've been getting fucked recently, man. If I feel good about these two guys, these are the two I feel best about on the card.
All right, so
That's
let me ask you this question because I'm sure the viewers are dying to know, the listeners. If you had to choose one to make KO or points, which one would you choose? Would you choose Strickland or would you choose Marab?
I
Because
think that
because the philosophy is the same. You get to mitigate the odds just a little bit.
I wouldn't do it with either.
Well, that wasn't the question though.
Yeah, so I guess the thing about Marab is that he's been specifically working with, Longo. So it makes me nervous to say that he's not eventually going to get a little bit better with his jiu-jitsu. But you're right, it's tough to imagine him to get a sub on Stamen. And, for the amount of times that the guy's been to decision, I guess if you had to say, then yeah, the more likely one would be Strickland getting a knockout on a guy that's already had 2 knockout losses in the UFC.
Well, that still wasn't the
Yeah,
question.
yeah. You said which one would I feel better about doing as a points or KO?
There's a double chance.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So it would be
so which one
Strickland.
did you feel
So
more
I said
comfortable
Strickland.
removing the submission from?
Strickland.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
but I'm
okay.
just not going to do it.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
That's why. All right,
because he
cool.
still has 4 submissions on his
Thank you,
record.
and that's why I had suggested it as the second one because
No, listen,
that is how
you
I
didn't
that is how I felt too. So
nah,
that's cool.
listen, if you really need the plus money play, do that.
No,
But
but
for
we've
me,
seen
I
that.
just can't do that.
We've seen houses burned and tickets burned
Exactly.
because of that. It's enough of that.
Yeah.
Time to be smart.
And I think time to get on to our next fight. Look at that
Definitely.
transition.
Good segue.
Ivan Kutelava versus Dustin Jacoby. We got the Hulk coming in versus the kickboxer.
Realistically, this is like a prelim headliner on other cards. I don't want to
Yeah,
be mean, but like,
yeah, especially given that Jacoby is 2-0, and that didn't he open up the last card?
yeah,
So
with like
yeah,
with
you would
Max
think
and
that you would
Griffin.
be the prelim headliner or something like that. You're not wrong, but Kudelaba probably is the bigger name here, even though he's only
For
4 and
sure.
5 in UFC.
But he's now a bigger name off of not good things, getting knocked out by Ankalaev twice.
Well, they made sure he went out cold the second time, so he had nothing to say.
Yeah.
So listen, the thought for me is that if I was going to bet this fight, which I'm probably not, and if you see it on my bet sheet, make sure to yell at me. But I think one of these guys is going to win by a decision, just because I don't
Fade the
think
narrative.
yeah, either of their chins aren't necessarily like the worst things I've ever seen. And, I think both of them are still nice and young. I don't think Jacoby is a striker like Ankalaev is. Those are the only two knockout losses on Kutelaba's record. Jacoby's not submitting him. If anything, Kutelaba would be the one getting the knockout or the submission in my book. To me, Jacoby is going to be a little bit taller. Kudelaba only going to be giving up 1 inch of reach, which plays into the wrestling. Kudelaba, I mean, I don't think it really gets talked about enough, just his elite numbers as far as the wrestling goes.
Hmm.
2.41 takedowns per, 15 is not the highest, but on 71%, that just means that when he does go for it, he's so powerful and high efficiency that he's converting. And, not a lot of his fights have really gone too far. He's only been to 2 decisions in his career.
This is quietly Kudalaba's 10th UFC fight.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's got experience, and here's the thing: is he showed up in some of the best shape of his life after his COVID experience, and he still got knocked out cold by Ankalaev. But I think he's my favorite. He's probably like my favorite prospect at light heavyweight right now. So I can't hold that against Kudelaba too bad. And for a guy not to be afraid to get back in there after feeling the power once, I respect that this guy's a psycho. And I don't know that Jacoby's ready for this guy at like face-offs and stuff, right?
Yeah, I do expect it to be interesting. I do like Jacoby's kickboxing level to continue to and his technical ability to keep him in this fight. Um, yeah, I mean you saw Jacoby knock out Justin Ledet in the first round, but I think it's safe to say that Kudalaba is better than Justin Ledet and a much better place in his career. And I think it's also safe to say that Jacoby doesn't hit as hard as Magomedov Ankalaev. So while I am relatively worried about how he may handle two pretty devastating knockouts in a row, Kudalaba doesn't really seem like a very introspective kind of guy in terms of like that he's going to worry about getting knocked out again. He just seems like one of those Spartan warrior types that's ready to fall out on his shield and do the best he can. With that being said, that does kind of lead to a low fight IQ. So I think you're hearing a lot of back and forth, and that's probably why that we really don't. While I'm very excited to see this fight, it's not necessarily one I'm looking to place all my money on. Even like what is it, over 1.5 minus 104, under 1.5 minus 124. I mean, it's so sketch.
So
It's so sketchy.
here's my ultimate thought: is that oh my god, I just went back and like looked at the stats real quick because I wanted to make a point about like Grishin, being able to hurt Jacoby early in the fight. He had 2 knockdowns in the first round against Jacoby.
That fight, yeah. Listen, a lot of people
Yo,
were complaining about that fight.
I'm
So
sorry, man. Listen, I bet Grishin, and I was really mad about that decision. He had 2 knockdowns in the first round. One of them at the very end of the round. Maybe I'm not so keen on this plus 750 Iwan Kudelaba by decision anymore.
yeah, I don't think it goes very far, man. You can't. Maybe the play is chalk. Maybe the play is following the narrative. Maybe sometimes this shit does happen. Kudalaba by KO plus 122.
Round one
How
plus
is that?
280.
How? What?
Round one plus 280.
I'm just yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like how is he it's the most clear path, it's the most likely path, and you're getting plus money at it.
And they both have a decent amount of experience to draw off of in their historical like data. Like they both have given us enough to see in their UFC career kind of how they fight. So I feel comfortable saying at least, like okay, maybe this is destined to play out that way, but I don't think I'm gonna really pump.
Listen, PointsBet has some interesting things in terms of props. When will the fight end? Round 1 plus 118. You know what I mean? You can combo a bunch of different things. Like how about the method, right? KO in round 1 plus 142. So you don't even have to pick a side. Maybe you think either guy is just going to get the knockout in the first round. I think those things are interesting, but probably going to stay away. Realistically, Kudalaba. Kudalaba, what the? Kudalaba under 2.5 rounds plus 122. So
Hmm.
I get the whole fight for him to get the finish? What? That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
That's crazy.
that might be a very interesting one. You're
And
giving.
that's specifically points bet because I know that FanDuel and DraftKings do not offer the fighter and the parlays of the under overs unless it's like championship fights. They're getting better, but they're not there yet.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's fair to say that I would have Kudelaba as the favor here, but I'm not going to touch it.
I really may end up touching Kudalaba and under 2.5. I shouldn't. I shouldn't. I don't even have any money left, but you can cut that. Please cut that. But no. Yeah, I may end up touching that just a little bit because that's interesting.
All right. So now to our co-main event of the evening. We move right along here. This one, like we said, is probably going to be the fight of the night, right?
Either that or the main event.
Well, I think the main event we might be more due for like a performance of the night,
Performance of the night. Yeah, that's fair.
but
I guess.
I guess anything can happen here, right? So,
Ugh.
no, so this one is very exciting to me. We got Chikadze coming in. Uh, yeah, I mean, it's just exciting. This guy, one of the Georgian Warriors, him and Marab coming in together. If you're looking for, one of those silly
How about a
parts,
Georgian parlay? We haven't even
yeah,
thought of that.
yeah. See, to me though, I think we talked about this separately a little bit. Oh man, Cub is someone to just make it a little interesting out here.
I
So
love Cub. Everybody loves Cub, man.
yeah, and damn, dude, I'm a little nervous to fade Cub Swanson after really having a
After staking our lives on Daniel Pineda for no reason.
yeah. And listen, I don't want to have too much recency bias thinking about that because at the end of the day, Chikadze 4-inch reach advantage, 4-inch height advantage, very
Full camp for the
similar.
first time.
Yeah, very similar to when we saw Cub Swanson come in and lose a tough fight to Shane Burgos. Very
All right,
similar
but you know
body.
what? I do have a problem with one thing again now that I'm looking at it. Has Giga really beaten anybody good enough yet? Um, Jamie Simmons, Afro Ninja shouldn't probably even be in the UFC. Shout out that guy. I'm sure we'll be breaking down a fight of his soon enough. Omar Morales, good, but that was his first fight moving up, and he didn't perform his best. Erwin Rivera, who tried to murder his family. Hopefully, he's getting the help he needs. And a split decision win against Jamal Emmers, right? When's that on like short notice for Jamal, where Jamal actually won that third round and looked decent.
Yeah.
And then a split decision win against Brandon Davis in his debut, who's no longer with the promotion, and Brandon Davis gave him a run for his money. So, yeah, I really hope that his full camp really shows him to be the best because after how Cub looked against Daniel Pineda, and honestly, his huge upset against Chrome Gracie before the terrible knee accident. Yeah, I don't know. I think Giga needs to come to be the best he's been. And what's that line? It's not egregious, but just enough to make me want to stay away, like you're kind of talking about.
Yeah, this for as exciting as this fight is going to be, I feel like they have it mostly priced right as far as going the distance, minus 162. Yeah, maybe that's a little something you would want to play. I think FanDuel had a little bit better price than that. I think we were looking at like a minus 140. But
yeah, Giga by decision would be the way
yeah,
because he's not going for a submission, and Cub hasn't been knocked out before, right? He's been submitted a bajillion times, but never knocked out.
one time by Aldo back in 2009.
Okay, so he hasn't been knocked out. Yeah. And he was hit with a flying knee to start that.
12
So
years ago. So
and that was in the WEC. So geez,
I'm not ready to go throw in the towel on Cub quite yet. I'm ready to enjoy this fight. And if there was like will this be fight of the night or whatever, I would bet that. And I think, if you really wanted to, you could probably parlay a fight to go the distance. But I've seen Jiga like kind of gas out a little bit, especially if any wrestling is initiated. Not that Cub really does that for the most part, but it's enough for me to want to just kind of stay off it and enjoy it because it's going to be a hell of a fight. But you asked me to pick, I'm taking Jiga by a decision here.
Yeah, I'm waiting for weigh-ins. I want to see how everybody looks. If you're telling me I can just pick a certain way, I don't have to risk any money. I don't know. I like Cubby. I hate rooting against Cub, but I do expect Giga to, keep it standing. And for every one counter shot Cub looked for, I expect Giga to throw 2 or 3. I expect him to get his combos off.
Yeah, yeah. So finally, here we are, the main event of the evening. One that is going to be quite the experience while it's happening. If you've ever seen a Jiri Prochazka fight,
I love this guy, man. I haven't seen enough of him. Can't wait to see more of him. I didn't even think we'd get to fight week just because it just seemed like, because I had said it to you off air about Corey Sandhagen and TJ Dillashaw. Just the same idea. I'm just like, there was something about it. I just didn't feel like we were going to get it. And this fight, knock on wood, whatever prayers we got to do, I think that we should be seeing this one. I really, because this fight was also canceled. We were supposed to see it in the end of February.
yeah, and man, this, like we said, just so exciting. Dominic Reyes coming in as an underdog to
I
Jiri.
love that, and to me, that right there, like the fact that you say those words makes me just want to bet him. Experience. I don't really care what anybody's opinion is about the John Jones fight. Gave John Jones a good fight. I think he came in way overconfident against Jan. He looked really stiff and was feeling the moment with his brothers in his corner. And I remember watching on an embedded, and I'm just like, this guy is just sniffing his own farts. I don't know what's going on with him. But Jan punished him
Rearranged
and
his face.
hopefully humbled him. So hopefully Dom has learned from those. He sounded good in some interviews. I like his technical boxing. I like his footwork. I like his head movement. I like the way he sets traps. Dom has now had the experience. He's went the wars. The one thing that makes it very difficult, and when you don't want to play MMA math, is the Volkan Ozdemir fight. How he has a split decision with Volkan Ozdemir, and Jiri turns his lights off. And one thing I did really like about Jiri, if you want to talk about interviews, Jiri talking about how he approached that Vulcan fight and how he felt how his performance in the first round wasn't good enough and how he took this time off to sheer up his technical abilities and get better, and how he cut his hair crazy because he's a psycho warrior. I mean, he makes it hard to bet against. Let me tell you that much.
Yeah, I think the one thing that keeps coming back to me is kind of how big of a fan favorite Prohashka seems to be, and
Yes,
how much people
I
seem
just I just made a whole argument.
like, and it's so exciting to watch Prohashka fight. But we go back to a little bit of that JSP type of deal I was talking about before. Now he uses head movements, so it's a little different, and he's got the karate background, but keeps those hands so low for a guy that has as much Muay Thai experience as.
And by the way, that was one thing he said specifically he wanted to change, which was in the one interview I did send you off air. But he literally said he wanted to pick his hands up more. I just there when you say things like that, I mean, it's just like, wow, it's so tough.
Yeah, so I come in really wanting to place like my biggest bet of the night on Dom Reyes, but
Same.
I also come in seriously respecting Prohachka and understanding that Denisa could pose some serious problems to Reyes if Reyes can't hurt him or potentially look to wrestle him.
I think that Prohaska could just show such an unorthodox style for Reyes, and I don't know where Reyes is. 2 losses in a row, could be 3, and could you even fault him? Could you even blame him? Like the Kelvin Gastelum problem. Like, could you even blame him for these tough 3 losses in a row if Jiri comes out and starches him or something? I mean, this guy might be the real deal and a bag of chips. his best win was that Ozdemir fight where he didn't look fantastic in the first round and came out and looked better in the second. Um, a win against UFC vet CB Dalloway, whatever. A win against UFC vet Fabio Maldonado, a revenge win against King Mo. Those are his best wins. That's everything. He's got a win over a guy 15-10, 6-1.
Things that's kind of stood out to me here that are, looking to fade the narrative, whatever. If I do end up making a play on this fight, especially since it's the main event, I always kind of like to do a little something. So it seems like Prochazka, has the tendency to almost fight from behind a little bit. Sometimes when he faces a tough opponent, like he got wobbled a couple times by Ozdemir in the first round, but Ozdemir just gassed out. And the second they come out in the second round, 49 seconds in, this guy's getting absolutely smashed. Yeah. So
Ozdemir completely guessed. You're 100% right. And I think one thing you could expect is that you're not going to see Dom gas for 2 rounds. Like, I think he's going to come in with his John Jones type stamina, and I think he's going to come in there looking to do war. Whether it goes that long is a different story. Maybe that's the narrative we want to fade. Everybody thinks the under. Nobody thinks this fight goes the distance. Nobody's seen Yuri go past round 2. Well, over 2.5 plus 136, right? Talk about fading the narrative. You try to cut the corner as close as you can cut it. Not a bet that I really want to place. I think the fight could end very quickly.
Yeah,
But
plus 136 doesn't seem quite juicy enough to go that far. If you were going to do something like really crazy, like
yeah,
really, really, really crazy, you would start looking at like, okay, does the fight go the distance? Plus 320 for yes. I don't know if I'm that crazy this week. We're talking a main event here. While I'm not going to throw my biggest bet of the night on Dom Reyes, will I throw the same amount on Dom Reyes that I'm going to throw on Random Marcos? Probably.
I think that's I
Probably.
think that's fair. I honestly I think I like Random Marcos more though.
Yeah, it's just when you're talking main event and stuff like that. So I guess maybe a 2 unit on Rando, 1 unit type of deal on Dom. I don't know. I feel like I need something on the main event here,
Of
but I don't want to
course.
kill my bankroll because this fight has so much volatility written all over it. This is going to be a great card. Just, I mean, real quick to break it down. If you missed our favorite plays, we're both looking at Random Marcos as an underdog. We both really like Marab as a parlay piece. I'm going to be specifically putting Marab in a parlay with Sean Strickland. And past that, maybe a baby play here on Dom Reyes. And I'm going to keep it light on this card. Hopefully, I actually stick to my word.
Yeah, no, I don't think I have any extra plays. I mean, my plays are pretty much the same as yours. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Chronic Combat Conversations. Throw our videos a like and share it with your friends. Follow us on Twitter at Chronic Combat and follow us on Instagram at Chronic Combat Conversations. Look for us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Make sure you subscribe so you know when all our new episodes drop and you'll get them right to your phone right away. While you're listening, liking, subscribing, and sharing with your friends, give us a 5-star rating and some feedback. Feel free to follow my co-host, TB Scouting MMA, on Instagram, Twitter, Verdict, and Tapology. And I am _MMA Guru on Instagram, Twitter, Verdict, and Tapology. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for Rodriguez versus Waterson.